The gods are conspiring against you.
How would you classify yourself? How do you see yourself? Hindu, non-Hindu, Astic, non-Astic? A lot of people are very interested in your Hinduness. So why don't you please educate us?
Okay. So see, the thing has always been, from my training, I am very Occidental. I have tried to read every religious book around. I have never gotten past the first 2-3 pages because I just find it intensely boring. Okay. I've never found anything profound in any religious book ever, and that's a problem. I guess because I hear about all these profound ideas. The problem is when I read the book, I don't actually see any profundity in it, right? So I don't know where they're extrapolating all of this from, which is one of the things I get to learn from him. Now, I fall in that very unique category, which this book explains, where I can pick and choose. Because you see, it's a permutation combination system in what we call Hinduism. How do you be a moral person without a god? Because see, this is where Indian philosophy, and for a long time the West thought we did not have a philosophy, because European philosophy comes from the Greek belief that after you die, you enter this grey underworld, where people only know you by the deeds that you did while you were alive. And so Greek, there is no afterlife, no rebirth, reincarnation in which you're either punished or rewarded for your good deeds. Now, is European society any more evil or whatever than us? Clearly not. We're all equally capable of evil and equally capable of good. So why is it for me that one thing works and one thing which should not work also equally works? So for me, morality was always a very personal question. And the way it was explained to me was, have you ever seen a lion catch a baby deer? Because the babies and the old and the infirm and the young are always the easiest prey in the savannah. Catch a baby deer and cry, saying, oh, I'm going to eat this poor baby deer, etc., etc. Clearly not. And this is a sort of question that I've pondered over. So I don't really know if I'm evil or not. I really don't. I just try to do good as I see it. But the problem keeps coming down to, I have never had a complex on what I am. I know exactly where I stand, which is a mix and match. It's take a little bit from here, a little bit from there. You're allowed to cherry pick, right? There's nothing against cherry picking in Hinduism. There is a lot against cherry picking in a lot of other religions, not outside. This was number one, which I found it very easy. The second is this notion of a cultural thing, right? Culturally, you will know that except for my dress, I'm very un-Hindu as per modern definitions of Hinduism, right? So, from my dietary, my world-famous dietary preferences, to my all my other proclivities, there's very little about me that is Hindu, and yet I will identify as a Hindu. You know why? Because nobody expressly tells me, at least in the books, has shown me a clinching paragraph that says, you are not a Hindu. And in many ways, this is like the modern definition of a nation state. You are a nation if you decide you are. It's a shared identity. Now, Harsh may not identify with me, but Amy may very well identify with me, and therefore I identify with her. There is something fundamentally where I identify with her, and therefore I'm a Hindu. I never understood what a cultural Hindu is, and this is something which goes back to the roots of our religion, right? In India, if you were a Nastik, whether you believed in the Vedas, if you believed in or did not believe in Ishvara, you were still a part of society. You were never outside it. In Europe, for example, an atheist was hanged. Hang or a lot worse. I'm being very polite to what they did. It isn't something that just happens in Islamic world. It was something that was very common in Europe. Very, very painful deaths at times. Just before the French Revolution, blasphemy was guillotined. And, atheism was guillotining. Blasphemy was your left hand and then your right hand, etc., etc. You've never had that out here. Now, if somebody is not pushing me away, I don't have my back up against the wall. I don't feel the need to identify myself as something else because I'm perpetually defensive and scared about what I am. It's something that's very comfortable with everybody being themselves in whatever permutation combination, and the freedom to do your permutation combination, right? And that doesn't answer your question, but it certainly answers a bit of what.
No, it definitely answers the question. We are allowed to pick and choose. So, Kushal, are we allowed to pick and choose? Is that too convenient?
You know, the funny thing is that if you ask an Advaitin, or today, I think mainstream Hinduism is pretty much downstream from Advaita Vedanta. Do we all agree on that? Yeah. They are the dominating stream of what is identified colloquially as Hinduism. If you ask them a question of Brahman, they'll be like, Neti, Neti. It is not this, it is not that. But they want specific answers on who is a Hindu, who is a Hindu. They don't want to answer what is Brahman. So this is kind of a pick and choose. So I can say not this, if it is on Brahman, but I cannot say not this, if it is for Hindu. My first experience with this term itself was actually in a very weird way. In Bandra, there is a restaurant. By the way, everybody should try their food, Crescent. So in Crescent, when you go for the culinary experience, right, I think that is the quintessential Indian way to understand Hinduism. What they do in that restaurant is, in the end, they bring a table with a map of India. And every state, they have one flavor on top of it. Then they have dal, and then they have rice. So they first pour the dal and the rice together, and then they tell you, this is Kashmir, this is Tamil Nadu. And then they mix it all together, and then they say, this is icici. So what being Hindu is, whether you like it or not, every single one of you who is here today is actually a icici. And we pretend that we are not a icici. Now, we are not a salad bowl, which the Canadians are. And we are not a melting pot, which the Americans are. Because in the melting pot, the gravy is fixed, American exceptionalism. You have to merge in the exceptionalism of America. In Canada, there is no gravy. You are all living in your ghettos. We don't live in our ghettos. We have a community which connects us, which ironically, people don't like to quote in our side of the aisle, is Diana Egg. And Diana was right when she says we have a sacred geography. And that icici is all bound together by that sacred geography. So if you say I don't pick and choose, you're lying to yourself. Now you can choose to live a lie, but it doesn't. It's not like at the time of the ancient darshanas, they were not picking and choosing. Because if they were not picking and choosing, why were all these texts talking about all these problems that they have existed? You read Kautilya's Arthashastra. Now somebody said, मगर वो स्मृति नहीं है. वो जो भी है मगर उसमें problem तो लिखी है ना. उसमें लिखा है कि, for example, prostitutes are allowed, but outside the boundaries of the city. Now, does it say prostitution is banned? No. It says it is there. I don't like it. I don't want to ban it. So, शहर के बाहर डाल दो. So, how isn't that a icici solution? It is there, but it is not there. So, you pick and choose in everyday life. The only thing what I find so funny is that the moment you say, I am a Nirishwarvadi, or I am a Nastik, because you're so Abrahamized in your thought, which is the key. I keep insisting the one thing. Everybody is obsessed with decolonizing. I'm obsessed with de-Abrahamizing. Because colonizers come and colonizers go. The point is, all of us as Hindus, and I'm not excluding the Muslims and Christians of India. Let me be categorical here. I think all Indians are Hindus. That's my way. I clearly mention it in my book. All Indians are Hindus. हमारे पंथ अलग हो सकते हैं, हमारी पंथिक सोच अलग हो सकती है, but this trope of forcing, which is why I'm glad Abhijit mentioned this cultural Hindu. I'm not a cultural Hindu. I just want to clarify. I am a Hindu, और वो कोई मुझसे नहीं ले सकता.
So, just one thing which Nami also mentioned, obviously, was there in Abhijit's points, comes out very strongly in the book, is there's no, what Milan Kundera used to call the word kitsch. There's no kitsch in this book. Because I think one of the side effects of a civilizational renaissance is sometimes we also feel the need to put on a show. What was the opposite 10, 20 years ago when we were perhaps a bit too ashamed to own up to our Hindu identity? Sometimes today it feels that there is an element of put on as well. So what I like about this book is that it goes through it like knife through butter, it cuts through all the nonsense. Jo hai, wo nahi hai, wo nahi. And we can be who we are. There's no need, there is no authenticity to go towards. What we are right now is authentic. Like it takes a lot of special talent and courage to live with a lot of social media hate. That perhaps I have no idea about that. I don't know what that is. So a lot of people, when Sanjeev Sanyal, a common friend, tweeted about your book, there was, I think, a campaign online for 2 days, which Ami mentioned. The atheists or Nastikas, they used it in a synonym sense, are not Hindus. So I'm trying to understand, and just to kind of make it a bit more edgy here, who are not Hindus. So for example, if that person does not believe in Sri Ram, he's not a Hindu, does he become a Muslim, does he become a Christian? What is, according to you, the definition of a Hindu?
Mutual respect, reciprocity, and Krishna's ahimsa. To me, if you believe in these three things, I don't care if you go to a masjid or a church or a gurdwara or a Jain derasar or a Krishna temple or a Shiva temple.
So even somebody who eats beef can be Hindu as per this definition?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, do you agree with that definition?
Actually, can I take a more holistic view on
I mean, it's become a very good politician. So I want to answer you take a more holistic view. That's fine.
one point which I don't want to bring in, because otherwise this will become an echo chamber, right? Because in principle we all agree on what is being told, that we have the freedom to say, take a family. Right? I always use this example. Take a family. In a family of 4 or 5, we have one person who will be like, "Main to Ganesh ji ka bhakt hu." Other person will be like, "Main to only Shakta." Some other will be like, "Don't believe in anybody." Some other will be like, "No, only Arya. And we all live very happily, right? So do we have that freedom within ourselves? Absolutely. Nobody is going to say, "नहीं ये तो शाक्त है, मैं तो वैष्णव हूँ, हम साथ बैठ के खाना नहीं खा सकते." ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है. Our families we very happily live, right? However, let us also appreciate that in the fold of Sanatana Dharma, we have a whole spectrum of thought. So, right, going all the way from very, very orthodox views to what we have more progressive and liberal views. The beauty is that the orthodox views, as long as they are not infringing on anybody else's right, also have the right to exist, and it's perfectly okay, right? For example, if you go to the Shankara Mathas, they are very, very orthodox in a lot of things, right? Then you have the Vaishnavas, or then you have so many other sampradayas. Now, again, see, whatever could have been in the beginning, the fact that so many sampradayas have come to be is because of this freedom of choice, if I may, and even more than cherry picking, I would use the word learning from it. Taking what works for you, right, rather than only cherry picking. So we have had that. So always keep that in mind as well, that it chalta raha. Also, when it comes to social media trolling, I guess, I hope you guys got the sarcasm when Harsh said, "I don't know." Right? Because I think these 3 guys are probably the most trolled guys. But that is also okay, I would say. Okay, that is also okay. What I'm really happy is that we have the courage to talk about. Because if you see our Shastra, yeah, today we think सब बहुत अच्छा था, कोई किसी को कुछ गाली नहीं देता था, ऐसा नहीं था. We should see some of these Shastras which happened with Swami Dayanand Saraswati and others, right? So this has always happened. As I mentioned before, you see some of these stories that are being told. So also appreciate the orthodox view. Why? Because sometimes holding on to a tradition is also important, which allows us to be what we are today. If that core is lost, then we will just become like an anarchy. And the progressive, exactly, that is religious privilege that he talks about. And understanding that, having that view also is very important. From that perspective, if somebody says, "I will not call a person who eats beef as a Hindu," I think that right also exists, right? Because do the Shastras by and large and all sampradayas across the board talk about not eating the cow? Yes, they do. Okay, across the board. Be it Nastik, Astik, whatever. Probably Cārvāka, I don't know if they've taken that, they have even discussed that at all, but they do this. उनकी किताबें ही नहीं है, तो वो हम कह नहीं सकते, है ना? But जो उनका overall philosophy है, probably.
So there is Sarvadarshi Sangraha, which talks about it.
Yeah, but
Very small discussion.
it doesn't go into what they have.
Yes.
Now there's food or
Plus, we
not.
don't have the original Cārvāka text. They're all lost. So it's very
So we
difficult.
don't know, but except for that, there is a clear injunction in all the sampradayas that cow meat should not be eaten for whatever reason. There could have been economic reasons. So from that, what is the majority view of will it be included in Hindus? No. But what about the other practices? There is a lot more variety and freedom in that. So I
We
will
have to call Abhijit now to respond, but just adding on to that.
No, I have no problem. These two
So-
do for
so,
me.
I mean,
For
obviously-
Shastra.
Ami is very clear that he is a. Ami also, you're right. Of course, everybody has a right to say something. We're not discussing that. We're discussing whether they are Hindus or not. What do we think? However, one thing I disagree with. You said Orthodox at the core. I think that I'm not sure what if there is a core satellite model of Hindu Dharma. I think that is can be problematic because if you do mention something as core, Orthodoxy also stands for a lot of casteist practices. So if you concede that to be the core, you already conceded the intellectual model.
No, I mentioned something else. I said as long as they don't infringe on the right of
That's
something.
fine, but do you think Orthodox is core of Hinduism?
No, I said they protect certain traditions which others don't. Like today, you and I, we're not sitting and doing Vedabhyasa, but they are. Because they believe in protecting that.
No,
So
Arya
that's
Samaj
also-
does Veda without the core Orthodoxy part.
That's
Caste
right.
part.
So
Okay.
they
Fine.
exist, right? And nobody's saying
So the
we should.
core is the Veda part, not the caste
The
part.
whole practice and certain traditions which also include some of the rituals, some of the things about what is allowed, what is not. They lead very strict life.
I know, but are they the core of Hinduism? That's the question.
The core of tradition from a religion perspective, what we are talking here is Hinduism is a lot more beyond just
Tradition.
religion, right? We are talking about a lifestyle, about a culture, but it has a religious core to it, which has allowed us to do all this. So that cannot be just discarded and discounted.
No, I'm not discarding. I just wanted to know whether it's core or not. So I'm just trying to bit semantics. So what about any and every moment on every second quote reply to you, you're a beef eater, you're not a Hindu. So this beef, B-E-H. So I think let's get the elephant out of the room. I mean, no comment on how you look. So let's get it up. What happens? Is how do you respond? Does it ever get to you as a friend? Does it really get to you sometimes?
It literally never does. Because I'm half Bengali. और बंगाली की असली आइडेंटिटी क्या होती
No stereotyping here at all.
है? Exactly. सबको उंगली करना to literally to irritate everybody else around you. Okay, that is the true essence of a Bengali. Not fish, not mustard oil, not the Bengali language. It's to poke people, constantly keep poking.
What about the monkey cat?
Yeah, that's different. That's bad taste. That's just bad taste. Let's not go there. So what happens in all of this is I came to this realization, surprise, when I was in Mexico. Okay. Now Mexico में क्या था? I read a lot of ancient Mexican history, be it from the Yucatan, which is Maya, or the other parts further up north, which is Teotihuacan and the Aztecs and things like that. Okay. Now इसमें क्या होता है? Every time when we were walking through the National Museum in Mexico City, the guide was so careful in trying to avoid the fact that इसमें human sacrifice होता है. And literally every single second or third object that I could see that was sacred was different kinds of human sacrifice. There's something called a chak, which is a sort of almost like a crescent rock carved with the face of the god facing you. And you were laid down like this, and your heart would be, your stomach would be slit open, and the heart would be extracted and offered to the gods. I'm looking at this reproduction of a Maya mural there of a guy literally spawned over, not drawn by the Spanish, drawn by the Mayas themselves, with the bleeding heart being taken out and somebody else being tortured in a very nasty way. And I realize the entire thing that we've come down to now is what the rest of the world sees us as. Okay? And that is when this was about 15, 20 years back, when I decided, see, it isn't just the way the white man sees you, it's the way anybody else sees you. Why should anybody else's opinion matter as to who you are? Right? So I don't care what every single sampradaya says. I think it's a case of self-identification. And I think this is where it is the constitution that nails it perfectly. If you are not a Muslim, if you are not a Sikh, if you are not a Jew, then you're a Hindu. But I go one step further, which is, do I identify as a Hindu? Yes. Does it give you the right to say, no, you're not a Hindu? Yes, it does. Okay, I can't say that you don't have that right, because you very clearly have a right to say what you are and what your belief system should not be. But then you also have to accept that I also have the same right. Right? So like he said, reciprocity. It is the reciprocity in it that matters. Though, just for the record, I gave up eating beef, my beloved beef. Do you know why?
It's not farmed here.
No.
It's not farmed
I
here.
bloated since then, yeah. I've been eating carbs. Horrible. No. कुछ नहीं.
It's not farmed here.
कैंसर दे दिया किसने? So इसमें क्या था? It was very simple. My mom asked me, we've got a Kamakshi at home. It's a very old Kamakshi murti. It's been in the family for the last 400, 450 years or something like that. Okay? And she asked me, you're building a house, do you want it? And I said yes. And she's like, okay. Now look, from my side, you're not allowed to eat any meat. From your father's side, in Bengal, mutton and fish are vegetarian. You know that?
How?
No, they're vegetarian. They are called Niramish. But garlic and onion are non-vegetarian. When you see Jain mutton corner, I totally get where that's coming from. There's apparently a Jain mutton corner somewhere. I don't know where. But I totally get that. So she's like, fine, I'll make this concession for you ki pyaz lasan chalega. But in no part of your two inheritances is beef mentioned. So you think it through, because as long as you have that murti with you, it is a responsibility. And this is where me being a Hindu comes in. Do I identify as a Hindu? Yes. Do I want that murti for the antiquity value of that murti or that socio-cultural this thing of the murti? Yes. But more importantly, are you able to respect that murti, because it has been, God knows how many 10 generations of my ancestors that have respected that. Right? You can't respect it without following it, respecting it the way that they respected it. You have to do that. There is no if or but to it, and there is no shades of grey about it. Now I searched, I asked everybody, bhai, mere ko kuch to de do ki bhai beef hai. And see, the thing is, they found in the Vedas, if you look at it technically, this is just sure, if you're a pastoralist kind of thing, you will be eating cows. The value of the cow comes about much later if you look at it. That doesn't matter. The problem is, do your parents do sampradayas, which is the Shaktas from my Bengali father's side, and especially the Tambrans on my mother's side. You can have many husbands, you can have many wives, but you can't have beef. Okay? So no beef. And therefore that has to be imperative. Okay? Nobody else determines what I am, what I do.
But I just want to clarify something over here on the question of beef. Like, I'm not a consumer of beef. I basically don't even touch red meat. I'm not a person who consumes meat on a daily basis either. But if this becomes a disqualification criteria for you on a cultural basis, then is everybody over here comfortable in rejecting the entire Indus Valley civilization as an Hindu? Are you comfortable with it? Because archaeology doesn't care about your feelings.
Even Cārvāka.
Yeah, even Cārvāka. Cārvāka said the cow is the last thing to...
Cārvāka said the cow is bovine, not divine. To be very, not me. Cārvāka said. Yeah, so there has been ample evidence that has been done. अभी उसमें भी लोग बोल देंगे कि archaeology is a Western construct.
No,
अभी
Kushal, ये तो चलते रहा है. Eventually, you have to also go
so
by.
my question is simple: are IBC people not Hindu?
No, I'm saying there is no question of rejection anyways, right? We've accepted everybody has
So
the
during
right.
the time of the Indus Valley civilization, you can check the carbon imprints. These are studies done. I'm not making this up. 60% of the population of Earth, I repeat, Earth was in the IBC. This Bhumi has been the most populated Bhumi since I don't know when. For a long time, people have been living here. So when you say, how do we know? Well, the one archaeologist, most of you, DB लाल से किसी को प्रॉब्लम है भाई? नहीं है ना? उनका ही काम स्टडी कर लो फिर. बाकी तो छोड़ दो. DB लाल का काम स्टडी कर लो. तुझे याद है ना मैंने तेरे को वो फोटोज भेजी थी? जो मतलब there was a time when he was attacked और इसने 2 फोटो शेयर की थी. उसमें एक अंगूठा दिखता हुआ अंगूठा मेरा. So I myself don't consume beef, but I don't want that to be the sole reason. Because then tell me, why should you make beef the criteria? You run into the slippery slope problem, which is why I say stick to reciprocity, mutual respect, and Krishna's ahimsa. Once again, I don't want Mahavir's ahimsa where you beat me and I don't even get to respond to you. I take Mahavir's anekantva. I don't take Mahavir's ahimsa. If somebody beats me, they are getting 2 punches right back with interest. But the point is, how many? Then why at beef? Why not at goat and sheep? Then वो ज़्यादा लोग खाते हैं. That's the only reason you're rationalizing it with. नहीं तो फिर बोल तो vegetarian बन जाओ.
I'll just add to that. I just think I am personally perfectly fine for all kind of beef bans in India. I am okay with cow slaughter bans, cow consumption bans, either centrally or state governments, whatever is feasible. I support it. I want it to happen. I do not want it to be called anti-dharma. Because if it's some European guy who's eating beef since childhood but is a big bhakt of Shri Krishna, has not been able to give it, or is a Buddhist, this is recovering his neo-pagan traditions, is deeply spiritual. Are we saying that therefore they are out of the pale of dharma?
Exactly what.
Of course, Hindu can be a subset of dharma, and it depends on the definition. So that's what I was coming at. But I'm okay with the ban.
That's going down a very dangerous path. Does religion then determine national policy? Okay. The issue is this is already settled. Okay. This no longer comes under the definition of secularism anymore because governments already determine what you consume. There is a restriction. If alcohol were to be invented today, alcohol costs more lives than cocaine, heroin, and all of that in terms of accidents and so on. If we were to invent alcohol today, purely as a thought experiment, I want you guys to check on your Google phones or whatever what the number of deaths because of drunk driving and things are compared to heroin or cocaine or whatever deaths. Alcohol in the public interest would be completely banned. Okay. But the thing is, governments have already taken it upon themselves to ban. They ban smoking in public areas, in geographical restriction. There is outright bans on certain things considered horrible. So, for example, in 49 states of the US, horse meat is banned. Okay, cats and dogs are banned. Now, for me, if you actually go to the Vedic sacred animal, it's the dog. It's not the cow. Right? You have Bhairavas. This is modern English, but in the old thing, Sarama is the one who is the divine. She's Indra's dog, and she is. You will actually find several passages. Ami, you can correct me on this in the Mahabharata, where people who eat dogs are looked down upon. They are looked down upon in things. Okay.
But they were not called out of the dharma.
True. They were not called out of the dharmic system. And for me, I value dogs over human beings. I told my driver, इंसान पे चलाओ पर कुत्ते पे चलाओगे तो मार डालेगा. Because I think animal cruelty right now is a joke. 50 rupees for torturing and killing an animal. Do you know that? That's the fine. 50 rupees.
So now let's.
Sorry, let me quickly wrap up. So, it's surprising how every discussion that I'm around ends up with food. You know, you can start with religion, philosophy, history. Yeah, unfortunately. But I don't think if your identity comes down to what you eat and it becomes a core marker, it can't sustain and grow. And the easiest example of this is Hinduism had lots of dietary preferences. How did Buddhism grow? It took away all the dietary restrictions. Christianity, if you look at it, is basically a development of Judaism minus kashrut, the kosher laws. Okay? Which Peter and Paul were if you read their thoughts initially, they were very clear about this religion can't grow if we keep banning pork and animals with cloven hooves and things like that. So, that's also something.
So I just want to now take it to a more equally important area. You said something interesting. I'm not sure if I fully agree with it. I understand where you're coming from. That all Muslims in India are Hindus. But you also say that reciprocity is a definition of Hinduism. I think it is fair to say that a mainstream understanding, definitely an orthodox understanding of Islam and Christianity, is that if you do not follow their God, their prophet, their one holy book, you do not end up in heaven, you end up in hellfire. So I want you to help us understand how do you kind of reconcile those two statements. I know you think very conceptually. How would Indian Muslims be considered as Hindus when your definition of Hindus includes reciprocity? And on that, I'll just give you this. And on that note, please help us understand the rising wave, if at all it is true, of ex-Muslim atheism in India as well as globally.
So first of all, when I claim that every Indian is a Hindu, it's obviously with the caveat of mutual respect. Now, if somebody does not believe in mutual respect, that's a them problem, not a me problem. अभी मैं तो हाईवे में बोल रहा हूँ रूट फॉलो करके चलाओ गाड़ी. अभी अगर कोई ऑपोजिट साइड से आ रहा है तो उससे तो डील करेगा ही ना कोई भी आदमी. So you don't set the rule thinking someone will break it. You set the rule and then you deal with the rule breakers.
The word Muslim or Christian has to mean something, right? I mean, that is the core part of their religion.
Well, Bulleh Shah believed in the oneness and Tawheed, right? But then there are Sufi songs ki main tenu Dashrath Lakshman Ram kahun, main tenu Sita Ji Janan kahun, Baldev Jasudha Anand kahun, Kishan Kanhaiya Kaan kahun, Mahadev kahun, Bhagwan kahun, कि मैं तनु गीत ग्रंथ वेद कहूँ कर ज्ञान कहूँ कर अज्ञान कहूँ. ये भी उन्होंने ही बोला है ना.
Right.
Before this we were talking, nobody can tell me you are not a Hindu. Okay. Similarly, when somebody is telling I am not a Hindu, who are we to say you are a Hindu? That also should apply equally, right? So those who are willing to accept, then that's one thing. But how can we tell somebody ask a Hindu when they don't want to accept that they are Hindu?
How can anybody say I'm going to hell? Just like that I am saying you are that. I mean, how can anybody say I'm going to hell? Well, they said. I mean, the book says that. And then they sing it on a daily basis. So how can they say? See, bolne wala bolega. Similarly, तो मैं allow किया.
Like everyone who goes there, you can say whatever, right? You have the freedom of speech, of course, we all agree, and you're saying it.
Yeah,
but what does it really make sense
So,
when the other side is not even saying कि मैं हिंदू हूँ, बहुत अपना नहीं लिखती हूँ.
first of all, there are many. See, the one thing I do talk about religious privilege in the book is because that's the atheistic blind spot. What happens is, let me explain this with an analogy. Now, this is a room. I'm assuming most of you are Astikas who have come for a Nastika's book launch. First of all, we should all clap for Hindu Dharma because in no other society this will happen. In no society. You know,